Welcome to CAS 133, Columbia Gorge Community College, The Dells, Oregon, Mrs. Hughitt instructor, and this is the video for week 4. Now, let's walk our way through this week, and then we'll look at the book and what's involved there. You're going to have your objectives again. You're going to have if you get stuck, and because you did Word last week, there'll be less Word resources this week. However, you can always go back to last week and use some of those resources if you find the need for it. If you're stuck on something, then you have the direction video that we're watching right now. And then you're going to have a conversation in your forum, and it's going to be about how to multitask with your machine and when you think it's going to be most useful and how you can use that skill. So there's a video for you to watch if you're using a PC. There's a video for you to watch if you're using a Mac. And remember, if you're interested in the other operating system, or you're going to have a Mac at home and a PC at work, or vice versa, you are always welcome to look at all the materials. There's never a problem with that. And then you just choose which way you want to respond. You have your data files, and again, you're going to need to download those, pull those to your desktop or to your flash drive, and make sure that you take the files out of those. So if I was going to do that, and I was using a browser other than Chrome, I would right-click, and I would go Save Link As. When that comes up, I'm going to find where I want it to go, and in my case, the desktop will work just fine. And I'm going to tell it to go ahead and put it on the desktop. Now, if you're using someone else's machine, you're up at the college, you're going to want to make sure those get on your flash drive. Just a hint, when the college machines turn off, everything that's on them is erased. So make sure before you do a log off shutdown that you are very, very, very sure you've got everything on your flash drive, or you've emailed it to you yourself as an attachment or something, so you don't end up with losing your work. I'm going to make my screen just a little bit smaller for my window, so you saw how I grabbed the edge of it. Then I can grab this folder and drag it over and drop it. And of course it didn't go where I asked it to, so that means I'm going to have to dig down and figure out where it did go. Then I can make a chapter 2 folder. Oh, not with that spelling. My hand hit the edge, so we'll try that again. And then I can open this zip file, open the next part of it, and I can grab whatever it is that I am going to need out of here. Maybe I need these computer notes. So I just grab them and I pull them to that other folder. Now, if I need a bunch of things, that folder is going to be important. If I needed just that one file, then it's not a huge deal to just pull one file out. So we'll make this a little bit bigger again, since you're now reviewed and are sure how to get those files downloaded. You'll be submitting your Word research paper that we'll be looking at here in a second. And of course, you have a version form. And then you have your application project. Again, this format's going to be like last week. So if you didn't quite get it, or you struggled a bit last week, go back to last week and kind of watch the information about the application project, reread the PDF, application project directions, whatever it is you need to make sure you're understanding what you need to be doing. Then you have your journal, which is your 3-2-1 reflection. We did it last week. We'll do it most weeks from here on out. And you're going to click Edit My Submission when you get to the page and start your journal. Now, I would type it in Word first personally, but that's kind of your choice. You need at least 150 words or more, and you're going to be answering 3 basic questions, 3 themes or things you learned in the unit, 2 ways you plan to use what you've learned, or you think you will use what you've learned, and 1 idea that you would teach someone else if you had the opportunity to teach it. What is the important takeaway that you think somebody else would love to know if you could have the chance to tell them? You do not actually have to go out and teach it. You just have to write about it. And then you will have your form that is on multitasking, and you're going to have a 100-word post and then a 50-word or more reply on both. Again, you can upload last week's extra credit in the link above still, in week 3's link. It'll be good until this Saturday. Or you can choose to do week 4 extra credit and upload it in this link. Either way, you need to get it done within 1 week of when we complete the book chapter if you're going to do extra credit. And then you have your weekly task list at the bottom. That will, whoops, I went too far. That will help you with your checklist. So hopefully that'll kind of get you through week 4 for the basics here. So let's switch over and look at what the book shows us. So we are in Word Chapter 2, creating a research paper with references and sources. And sometimes students hear the word research paper, and before they read the directions, they go out, they pick their favorite topic, and they start researching for a research paper. Nope, not happening in this class. This is something totally different. You're learning the mechanics of how to use Office for that putting together of a research paper so that you can present it with the correct formatting, the correct footnoting, the correct inline sourcing, all of those mechanical things. And sadly, a lot of times students will tell me, well, I had to write a paper for a social studies class or a psych class or my English class, and nobody told me how to source it. I didn't know what MLA meant. You'll have that chance to learn here. You are actually not researching a single thing. You're going to use a pre-set up paper for you. All you have to do is basically copy it and format it correctly. First thing to know. So as you head in, it gives you reference information. And some of this is going to be the most important part you read, because as you're telling me that you don't have any idea what MLA is when some teacher says, oh, do an MLA format or APA, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And you're trying to kind of limp your way through. Well, now, this talks about Modern Language Association of America and the American Psychological Association, APA and MLA. So it tells you about that a little bit, and that's good information to know as a student or anybody that has to do research, which is not just students by the time people get jobs. So now we're going to look at this research paper a little bit. And autofocus doesn't seem to want to really get excited about this. It might be just a little too high for it to autofocus on. That's a little better. Okay, so you have some things to notice. This paper has double spacing here. It has a title centered. It has indenting. It does not have a big gap here. It's going to ask you to suppress the space after paragraphs. Students often miss that direction and they have this like huge gap there. So that's points off. As you go through here, let's see if I can slide this up a little bit without crisis happening. You will notice an inline source has been put here. These are live action sources, which means that when I have it electronically and I click on it, it does something. It's not just typed words like it looks like on this page. It is actually a live source, and you format it in a proper way by following the directions so that when I click on it, I get the right results. So make sure you follow those directions carefully. Sometimes students just think, oh, I'll just sit down and type this. It'll save me a whole lot of time if I just type this and I don't have to go through all those steps and directions. And they fail the project because as soon as I click on that, I know they haven't followed the directions, and then everything goes downhill after that. The whole reason to do this project is to learn the tools in Word that are built in that will make putting that paper together when you finally do a real one a breeze. And if you're just going to copy this to like, okay, I'm going to make her happy, I'll get my grade and life goes on, you miss the whole purpose of the project. Therefore, you fail. Down here, there's a footnote. There's a special way of putting those in, and when I click on it, I'll be able to see that you've done it the right way. Down at the very, very bottom, which I don't know if I can get to with the camera. Here we go. You will see how the footnote's been set up. They've changed the fonts. They've set it up, or at least the font size. This is, again, going to be another one of those live type of citations that I can click on. You continue up to the next page, again a live one, Now, at this point, you think, oh, I got it made. Well, no, they're going to have you go back in and change some synonyms and change some words. And so you're going to have to go through that last step that has you change all the words. And then it's going to bring you to just a couple of clicks of your mouse, and this is going to magically appear. You don't have to go out on the internet and look at one of those sites that lets you do references and copy it in. Basically, you're going to do just a couple of mouse clicks and it's going to be there. Then you're going to do a little editing, a little turning it into plain text. You're going to take a word out or add a word in. You're going to do a little bit of editing to it, and you're going to be through the directions eventually. You need to be very careful you follow the directions step by step, because for every one of those steps, I can see if you've done it correctly or not. So let's walk through the textbook a little bit. It's going to have you change some document settings to get started, creating it, getting it going. Let's go back out, see if I can take the camera up a little bit so we get a little bit more to look at on a page. So it's going to get you all set up, get ready to go. And then it's going to start walking you through directions. I'm kind of doing every other page because you're going to do it from your book. But it's kind of walking you through all the steps of directions. So you'll see that they're just page after page of steps. Add space before paragraph, remove space after paragraph. Don't miss that direction right in here because that's a loss of points. You're going to update styles to match. You're going to just kind of continue through using headers and footers, and you need to use them correctly. It's a pretty simple thing to do if you read the directions. And a skill that's often used, so it's a good one to know. So you're going to again continue on. You're going to type some of the stuff. Oh, and sometimes students will say, well, should I use this or should I change it to CAS 133? You're copying this paper, so just do this. If the date auto changes to today's date as you're doing it, that's fine. That's not a big deal on the date. But the rest of it's going to be set up just like the book. You don't have to try to convert it for our class. And it's going to show you keyboard shortcuts, how to save a document. Boy, I would have saved it long before this. I wouldn't wait till here because if something went wrong, that's an awful lot of pages to go back and start over. So I would make sure I'm saving after I do the first 2 or 3 things. You're going to kind of continue through this. It's going to walk you through some autocorrect, how to set up autocorrect, which is a great thing to know. TEH is one of my favorite words to type when it's supposed to be THE. And I do the same thing with one finger gets there before the other one and it reverses the letters. Having autocorrect set up just automatically fixes those words. So autocorrect again. This is where you're going to start inserting citations and creating sources. This is a little complicated as far as being something probably pretty new to you. You're going to need to follow the steps and be really careful. Don't do it at 1:30 at night when you're dead exhausted and hardly see the page. Do it when you're sort of fresh and ready to go, and don't do it with lots of distractions going on and unable to focus, because this is the point that's going to get you in trouble and set you up to redo the whole project, which is going to take you a whole lot longer than concentrating the first time and getting it right. So it's going to continue to walk you through how to set these up exactly, and that's really important to know. And as you continue, you'll just kind of keep working through all those steps. It's going to have you setting things up, continuing to set them up. It's going to have endnotes and footnotes and talk about them. Sometimes students say, well, what are they and why do we have them? Well, it talks to you about it in here, so make sure you're reading it some. Talking about automatic text breaks. If you have not figured out how to count words yet, it talks about counting words. It just shows up at the bottom of a Word document when you type words. It's actually pretty easy, but there are some other ways to open screens that will tell you more than just a word count. It will give you characters, it will give you paragraphs, it will give you lines, all those types of things. So it's a little bit more than just the basic how many words. And then it's going to have you edit a source. You've got it in there. Now what if you need to change it? Or what if you didn't quite get everything written down you needed the first time you did it, and so you kind of had to come back and finish it up? Well, here you go. You can do that. You can come back and you can finish it up by editing it. How to break the page manually. Creating alphabetical works cited pages. So like that's a really important thing. That's kind of like putting that whole works cited together. Applying a style. Creating the bibliography list, the biographical list, and getting that put together. And that's really easy if you've done the rest of it right. It comes out here, and there's some things to make sure it's done. Make sure your indent is a hanging indent. I know in one of the advanced CAS classes, kind of a project-based wrap-up for some of the certificates, if you don't hang your indent, you're in trouble, because that's a skill you should know from other classes you've taken, this being one of them. And so this is a great page if you're keeping your book, put like great big yellow around it, or put a sticky marker off the top of it or something to help you remember that, because I know that the instructor of that course has complained about students not doing that. So that's a good hint I'm passing on to you. And then you're going to get into the proofreading and the revising, and they always have you do some of that. And you're going to have to modify a source in that. Something else to remember, anytime you're working in this book, sometimes there's these other ways, and it'll tell you another way you can do it, or it'll have a question and answer, and those can a lot of times help solve problems. I know sometimes modifying the source doesn't always update like it's supposed to, so you may want to use the other way if you need to. Notice how when this is, well, maybe not, let me slide down. Notice how when this is clicked on, this is all this dark colored stuff. This is not plain text at this point. This is still very much a formatted text here. And if I click on that, what's going to end up happening is I can tell you've not updated that to plain text. We're not quite to that point, but it's coming up right here at the bottom of the page. It says convert a field to regular text. And what happens, and if you've got your book out, I'm on WD 110. What happens is, because that doesn't have a great big red dot by it, students don't do it. Well, there's the red dot. So add yourself a red dot there and make sure you do it. It kind of gets lost, and if you're just skipping red dot to red dot to red dot, what ends up happening is you go red dot, red dot, red dot, red dot, and you never do this step, and then you get graded down, and then you're like, well, it never told me to. Well, yes, it did. You missed it because you were only reading the red dots. So it's got some more things for you to do as you go. It's going to show you some other skills with some cutting and pasting, copying text, displaying print options. Sometimes people wonder, well, what are all those funny little signs? Now you have a chance to learn that. It's going to have you replace some text. And use the find and replace dialog box. And on my copy I use mostly for grading. I have that all marked, so I know which words you're changing and have to change and what they have to be changed to. So I'm watching for that. Inserting a synonym. A synonym is a word that means the same thing. So if you have a word that you've just like overused and it's kind of tired and worn out in your paper, you can go in and use a synonym and change it. And they even give you synonym options. So you're going to complete it with a synonym. It's going to show you how to look up information when you're in Word, which is a neat skill. It doesn't always work out exactly as expected because it is tied to a web page, and if that web page has been changed, it may not look exactly like what you're finding, but it's still a good skill to check in on. And how to do main and custom dictionaries. If you're doing, especially if you get out in the field, some of you going into wind energy types of things. You're going to have some vocabulary you use all the time that the rest of us don't use or don't even know. And so it's really nice to do some custom dictionary stuff for that so that if you have a typo, it's found. So that's a nice skill to know how to do on down the road in your field. And you're just going to kind of go change read mode. It's going to show you some modes to look at. It's going to show you how to do a sepia on it. So if you wanted to do something with some color, you know how to do it. Talks about how to print. Now remember, in this class we are paperless, so you won't be printing for me at any point in time, but you may want to print for you. If you don't know how to print in Word, I suggest you practice so you know how to when you have to turn in a paper copy someplace. And then make sure you always save at the end so you don't lose anything, and you're to your chapter summary. So let's hop on and look at our application project. This is going to be a 1 video for everything, not a 2. So we're going to skip all these early pages. When we get to the in the lab pages, if you want to do one of these as your in the lab project for an extra credit, you can. And then you're going to make sure you read all the directions so you know what you need to have. And you're going to be creating the same paper. Everybody has the same one. It's not go out and make your own. Same with this one. So you've got a couple of those to do. And then you're going to get into your application project, which is that second part you need to complete. So again, always read all the way through both projects or all 3 projects. Both of the first 2 are really more realistic, but you can do the third one. If you're pretty advanced in Word and you're like, really, do I have to do this? Then do the third one. If you're kind of a newbie to Word, then I would not do the third one. It's a lot more work. And you're going to have enough probably this way. So what are you going to do? Well, you're going to create a research paper about laptops, tablets, and desktops. Again, you're not doing any research. You're going to go to your data files that you downloaded, I showed you a minute ago, and you're going to find your turn 2-1 computer notes. So those were the files that were over here. I think I pulled that one over here. So 2-1 computer notes. They're right there. You do not have to create your own wheel for them. You are going to be able to literally take the notes. However, think of this as you've now spent 3 days in the library or online and you've done all this research, you have a pile of notes, and you now need to make a paper. These notes are not the finished product. When you're done, it should look like that paper from the learning project. It should have MLA citations. It should have a footnote. It should have the spaces suppressed after paragraphs. It should have appropriate indents, appropriate top of the kind of that titling information. It should have an appropriate word-created bibliography or works cited page by using those live citation tools. And it does say you can do some more information from another source and include that information as a note positioned in the footnote. So that is the only other research you're going to do. You get to go out to the web and research like one little bit that you get to bring back in and put into this same set of notes into this paper and footnote. So you have that one extra little step in there that is a little bit of research. But please do not start from the beginning. Please start with the original notes and then add your one little research piece with a footnote in the paper. Anyway, and of course you need to enter that then with any corresponding source information that's appropriate. So then that means it needs to be in your citations. So when I look at your citations, I should see that in your works cited page. You're going to do an autocorrect entry. Yeah, okay. That's good. That's a good thing to know. You may have to go back in the chapter and look at how to do it. Pick up, if you can, pick something you normally mistype, like my and the are a big problem. Set the default dictionary. Add one of the source's last names to the dictionary. So just pick one of the sources. And then you're going to make sure you've used the concepts and techniques presented in the chapter to organize the text that you found in those data files. Do any rewording that you feel necessary. So if you feel some of the notes are a little awkward, or they don't flow together well, or it feels like you're jumping from one thing to another without a good bridge across it, you know, fix those things up so it reads nicely just like you would with any research paper. Then create and format this paper according to MLA document style, which is what we did in the last paper you did in the learning chapter, so it should come out looking virtually the same other than the topic has changed and you had to do it on your own. Be sure to spell check and grammar check. Always go back and reread your paper. Don't just assume you have it right. That's a really easy thing to do, and I know I'm guilty of it sometimes too. Just a good reminder to make sure you go back and read, and then turn it into Moodle. You're not asked to do the critical thinking questions. You don't have to worry about, well, actually, I take that back. That's what they're calling these. So let me say that. So then you come down here and you do these questions. You're going to, again, open a new Word document, and then you're going to type the questions and type your answers. Now, with this much work and time and effort and thinking of putting a Word research paper together, I am sure you should be able to meet that minimum 200 word requirement without much problem. So make sure you're very thorough on what you write. Now, if this is the one that you say, I don't really want to do that, you do have the other choice. It's on POS terminals, ATMs, and self-service kiosks. It works the same way. Please make sure you read all the steps here. It is the 2.2 set of notes in there for you. And then the last one would be a research paper on social media sites. And for that paper, I believe you have to do all your own research. I'd have to sit and reread it. But remember that it's designed to be done by a team, and you are the team. This is not a group project for this class. So if you pick this one, it's going to be a lot more research and a lot harder for you. So I think that takes you through week 4. See you again for week 5.